Superman and Lois, episode 7, The Anti-Hero. It's your boy Icon with some DC TV. This one's a little late, and thank God they took a break, which gave me a chance to catch up. Still trying to catch up, but we gonna make it. My vacation's coming soon, so I got a little bit more time. So, this particular episode starts. In the last episode, we remember that Clark had got ran up on by the United States government because they labeled him a traitor because he wouldn't reveal the location of the Bizarro Superman. So they throw him in the same cell with his brother Tal-Ro. And you know, when I realized that they put him in the cell with Tal-Ro, I actually started laughing because, as we remember, and I always make fun of him for this, you know, Tal-Ro's famous line when he was defeated last season was, "I only wanted family." Well, you got family now because now you and your brother are locked up in the same cage. And he was just like, "Oh, brother," he was like, "what have you done?" You know, to have your human allies turn their back on you. And then he was just like, "I don't want to hear it," you know, Tal. And then, you know, the general came in and he was just like, "Oh, tell me where the Bizarro Superman is." And he was just like, "No." And then he told the general, he said, "Listen, I need you to investigate Allie Alston. She's the one who's really behind this. And there's a bigger threat coming here that you need to be prepared for." But because the general's bitch, he he didn't listen, and instead he was just like, "Oh, I have ways of making Kryptonians talk." So he ended up having his goons go into the cell, and they ran up on Tal-Ro, and they put a kryptonite collar around his neck, and they threatened to kill him. And he was just like, "Oh, if you don't tell me the location of where you're keeping the alien," he was like, "your brother's gonna die." And then he was just like, "Oh, spare me, Cal." And then he was just like, "No, don't hurt my brother." And then he ended up giving them the coordinates. But the coordinates that he gave them wasn't to the location of where the Bizarro Superman was. He actually gave them the coordinates to the Fortress of Solitude. And I was like, hold up. I was like, you actually gave them the, okay. So he gave them the coordinates to the Fortress of Solitude. I don't know why he did that. So the general and his goons, they go down to the Fortress of Solitude. So then Superman and Tal-Ro, they come up with a plan. You know, they were in cahoots to try to get themselves out of out of the prison. So they basically like staged a fight where they was just like, "Oh, you know," he was like, "Brother," he was like, "Oh, what are we going to do?" And then he was just like, "Oh," he's like, "Spare me, Tal-Ro." And then he was just like, "Oh, you tried to hurt my son." And he was just like, "Oh, you turned your back on your." They got into this whole big thing. And then the two of them started fighting, and they started fighting in the cage, which made the guards come in to check on the fight. Once the guards came in, both of them beat up the guards. You know, Tal-Ro, he shot the metahuman Superman dampening device that was dampening the powers. Basically, that was causing the red light. So Tal-Ro shot that, you know, and then after that, then they slowly started getting their powers back. And he was just like, "Oh, I've missed the rush of having super strength." And then, you know, they got their powers back and then they dipped. The general found out they were gone, and then he lost his complete shit. And then he was just like, "I'm gonna get them back by any means necessary." He breaks into like the secret government DEO facility, and he steals kryptonite weapons. He steals the XK kryptonite to give himself superpowers, and he ended up getting the location of where Tal-Ro's base was. And he went down there to kick some super hiney, which is exactly what he did. But before that happened, Tal-Ro, you know, he was there. He was talking to, like, you know, to their mother because the hologram of their mother is still there. And then he was just like, "Oh, you know," he was like, "Oh, this creature is amazing, brother." He's like, "He's your evil twin," and blah blah blah. And then he was just like, "Oh, on." Then he spoke to him. He was just like, "Oh, on our world." He was like, "Who are we to each other?" And then he said, you know, then the Bizarro Superman had said to him, he was like, "Oh, you betrayed me and my family." And then Clark was like, "I knew it." And then he was just like, "Oh," he was like, "Oh, but were we enemies on your planet?" And he was like, "No, we were." He was like, "We were close, we were tight, and like we were the best of brothers." And then he was like, "What drove us apart?" He was like, "Was it power? You know, was it greed? Was it money?" And he was just like, "No, it was your wife." And he was like, "Who's my wife?" He was like, "What's her name?" He was, you know, they didn't say his name. And I swear to Christ, his wife is either gonna be Lucy or Chrissy from from Lois's newspaper. It's not gonna be like, I mean, anything. If anything, it might be because he said that, you know, your wife drove a wedge between us. His wife might end up being a villain, like a Superman villain, you know, from from that different Earth to come over. But if it's not like, if his wife isn't a villain that we're gonna meet later, it's either gonna be Chrissy or it's gonna be Lucy. So anyway, so but then like right before he got a chance to tell him like what his wife's name was, then that's when the general had busted in. He threw kryptonite smoke in the place. He was whooping everybody ass, and then their mom had let the Bizarro Superman out of his cage so he can go help and rescue her boys. So Tal-Ro at one point he took three kryptonite bullets to the chest trying to save Clark. And then after that, Clark had burnt out the kryptonite, but then his mother was like, oh, you need to get him to the sun, Cal. So he flies his brother to the sun. Meanwhile, the Bizarro Superman is fighting the general. And one of the biggest problems that he had was the general was trying to use the kryptonite weapons on him, but they weren't working because he's from Bizarro world where everything's backwards. So because everything's backwards, kryptonite doesn't hurt him and actually makes him stronger. But then the X-Kryptonite, which does nothing to Superman on this Earth, that last time I checked, it actually weakens like yellow kryptonite, X-Kryptonite, that is his kryptonite. So the general, since the general's pockets were full of the stuff, he used it on the Bizarro Superman to weaken him. Then he put him in the chokehold. And I don't know if he killed him, put him to sleep. I'm going to assume he killed him because he just walked away and left his body laying there on the floor. If his whole thing was just to make him pass out, he wouldn't have walked away like that. So we're going to assume he killed the Bizarro Superman. But if the Bizarro Superman is strengthened by kryptonite, they can always bring him back or just put him under some red lamps, because although red sunlight, it weakens Superman, then red sunlight should strengthen the Bizarro Superman. But we'll see. I mean, I don't think he's dead, because it's like we went through too much with the Bizarro Superman only to have him go out like that to the general. So like I said, I don't think he's dead, and I look forward to seeing how they bring him back to life, since the general apparently killed him. And then now the general, he's like flying in the wind, like, like the general daddy, he was just like, he's an enemy of the state now because of all the stuff that he stole. Basically, he went rogue. And then after that, they were just like, listen, we'll find him and we'll bring him to justice. So now the general, because he went crazy, he's on the run from his own government, and Superman is just like, he's just happy to be home at this point so he could be with his family. And Superman, he's talking to his brother, and then he was just like, Cal, tell your son I apologize. And then he was just like, one day, brother, I hope you can tell him yourself. And I'm just like, okay. So we're going to try to turn Tal-Ro into a good guy. I don't really have a problem with that, though it would be cool if Lex Luthor breaks him out of prison. Just saying, where's Lex Luthor at? So anyway, now on to the rest of the show. Jonathan, he got busted with XK because he was taking XK to try to enhance his own power on the football field. But the problem was he ended up, his girlfriend, since she was the one who was selling him the stuff, she had like 50 vials of it, like on her person because she was selling it in school. The principal ended up bringing in like XK sniffing dogs, and like the cops showed up. And then when the girlfriend saw them, she was like, oh my God, she was just like, I can't get caught with this stuff. It'll ruin my life. I'll be in trouble. And then Jonathan, trying to swoop in and Captain saving him, he was just like, he was like, I'll take them. And then he's like, I'll dump them for you. Why couldn't she dump them herself? Second of all, they stood there the entire time. Like, the principal was there, the dogs were there, the cops were there. All the other kids in the hallway were leaving the premises, and both of them just stood right there. I'm like, bro, you could have been ran to the bathroom. You could have been dumped that shit in the toilet. Like, y'all basically just stood there like dummies, and y'all just like let this whole thing happen. The dogs found him, and then they're just like, yo, this is the guy with the X-Kryptonite. But he took all the X-Kryptonite from his girlfriend, so then he was the one that got in trouble. Lois cursed him out. And then, she was just like, tell me where you got it from. And he was like, I can't. Because his whole thing was, he said, what I did was wrong. He's like, I know what I did was wrong. But because I made a bad decision, because I made a bad choice, I'm not going to ruin somebody else's life by snitching. And the Lois was just like, oh, they're going to suspend you, Jonathan. And to be honest, if they do expel him from school and he has to go to a different school, I feel like that'd be the best thing for him, because he was struggling in that school anyway. Like, Smallville High wasn't working out for him because he wasn't able to be the star of the football team because he already had a quarterback. At least if he goes to a different school, he has a chance to actually, get what he wants and be the quarterback of the team. So I support the school move, but he's still trying to protect his girlfriend, and he don't want to say nothing. Lois is mad. She cursed him out. And now we'll just wait until their father gets home. See what I mean? Anyway, Lana, she ends up talking to Sarah. Sarah's upset because, like, her dad got kicked out of the house, but she doesn't want to talk to him, and she's not sure if she should talk to him. She ends up talking to the girl that she made out with when she was at camp. And that was very interesting because she's so upset that her dad cheated on her mom. When she's trying to find answers and trying to figure out what she should do, she ends up calling the person who she cheated on her boyfriend with. I'm just saying. So like I'm just saying. So the girlfriend talked like well the girl talked her down, you know, got her to get her mind right, and then in the end she ended up talking to her dad. We didn't see the conversation, but her and her dad embraced and they ended up having a conversation. Lana, she ran up on the current mayor because he's trying to do this whole campaign thing about how it's all about family and how Smallville's a family. And then she ran up on him and she was just like, you're talking about family, you're talking about Smallville's family, you're talking about how the people are family, but you're trying to tear me down while I'm going through this situation with my family. That doesn't sound like family values to me. And then she dropped the mic and walked out on him. So, so you know, she's still running for mayor. Thank goodness, because we've abandoned that, you know, for the last couple episodes. So I'm glad she's back on the mayoral trail. Sarah, she's friends with her lover person again. And this episode had really nothing to do with Jordan. And, you know, and Jonathan, he's in trouble because once Clark came home, Clark cursed him out too. Like once Clark got back from the DEO, he was just like, oh, you know, like we're so disappointed in you. He cursed out Jonathan. Jonathan started crying. And then in the final scene, the general, who's now an enemy of the state, he found Allie Alston and he was just like, oh, I'm no longer with the Department of Defense, but he said, I have this purple pendant that Superman says belongs to you and I want you to show me how to use it. So now he's teaming up with Allie and then he's going to be like her, like I guess like her Superman, because he still got the spray. He still got the X-Kryptonite. So he's teaming up with Allie now. Lucy's also teamed up with Allie now. So Allie's stockpiling, you know, like she's definitely stockpiling, and who knows what's going to happen with Bizarro Superman. And we'll see what happens now that Allie has acquired more power and how she's going to use it, seeing as how she is the big bad of the season. So that was it, and thank you for tuning in. Very good episode of Superman and Lois. I did enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing what happens next. You know, like the next episode comes on the 22nd, which is the day before my vacation. So most likely when I do my review for Superman and Lois for the next episode, I will probably be doing that review live on location from my vacation. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Instagram, always on YouTube. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Definitely share, hit the notification bell so you will get notified when other videos come up, because I'm loving the direction that Superman and Lois is going in. I question killing the Bizarro, but like I said, these aren't things that we're supposed to know. We're just supposed to watch the journey and see it unfolds, and then we'll make our decisions on whether or not we liked what they did when we actually see the whole thing unfold towards the end. In the next episode, though, we are getting the Natalie story. Thank God. We're finally getting the story about how she got here, and I'm gonna be glued to that like my eyes, because I've been asking that question since day one. I just want to know how she got here, so I'm definitely happy for that. And the fact that they were shooting that episode explains why ain't been no black people on the show for like 2-3 episodes by now. So, but hopefully after that, John Henry will get out of the hospital, Natalie's story will be told, and we can continue on with Superman, Lois, and Steel. So thanks for tuning in, guys. So check out my other reviews. Check out Naomi that we got on the channel. Check out my review for The Flash, because The Flash is back, baby. I got the Batman on the channel as well. My season finales for both Legends of Tomorrow and Batwoman. And we're still doing Superman and Lois. And we're still waiting for Young Justice. So that was it. So until next time, I'll love the ways always.